It's 31078, cannibalism. Might seem kind of gruesome. It kind of is. I'm going to give you a little background of what got me to this position to run this bill. So back in 2019, I heard that Washington State was starting to do human composting, and that disturbed me. I wanted to address this because what I didn't want to see is bags of compost with human bone fragments. I want to stop it getting into the human food supply. I was on a plane this summer, watched a video of some food show, and the three contestants tasted the food and they had to guess what was in it. It was some kind of a sausage, and one of the options they told these people that was in the food was human flesh. The way our society's going and the direction we're going, this is going to be normalized. There's only one state in the union that it is illegal, cannibalism is illegal, and that is Idaho. It's already illegal for someone to do it themselves, but it is not illegal for them to give it to somebody unknowingly. So what that language does is captures it getting into the food sources. That's really my concern.
Would you want to include on line 11 flesh, blood, bones, and organs?
I do believe flesh would cover the organs. Hopefully we don't ever have to add bones to this. But I was doing that incrementalism thing. I mean, if it's not even illegal to feed it to someone, so I was thinking like maybe next year we come back and go the next step.
How on earth do you grow human meat?
I want to introduce you to our nutrient vat.
Hello, nutrient vat, Greg Wise, telepresenter, and your job is?
Well, what its job is, it processes thin slices of tissue in a nutrient-rich mix, which you see here, and then cells start to grow. So over a 24-hour period, these will slowly fuse together into one great big, what we call a cake.
So you're telling me that is human flesh?
Exactly.
But why human meat? Why not animal meat?
That's a very good question. We've got centuries of knowledge of human medicine at our side. We know more about humans than we do about animals. So we've mastered engineering human cells to make these structured flavours and sinews that we expect from the flavours and steaks we eat.
This must be a relatively new process.
But it is, I mean, under EU law, we couldn't possibly operate machines like this due to legislation. But thankfully now we're out. We can harvest people and we can pay them for their flesh.
So what happens to this now?
Right, well, this will either be cut into steaks or it'll go off and be processed for sausages, burgers, you name it.
And it's no secret that the government always approves of some new way to poison us, but liquefying bodies and potentially putting them back into the drinking supply is a whole new level of ick. It's called alkaline hydrolysis, and it is water cremation, being coined as the new, cleaner, greener, and eco-friendly way to dispose of your loved ones. But here's what really happens. A body is placed inside of a steel vat with chemicals, typically potassium hydroxide, where it is heated under a high temperature, which liquefies the body. All that's left is the bones, which are then ground up and give back to the family as ashes. The rest is flushed down the drain. That liquefied human goes through the wastewater treatment, then gets recycled back into the municipal water supply. The same water supply that comes out of your tap if you're on city water. Now they advertise this as biologically sterile, but here's what can survive. Prions, they're tiny misfolded proteins typically found in the brain. Mad cow disease, heat-resistant pathogens like hepatitis A, pharmaceutical residues like chemotherapy, antidepressants and hormones, heavy metals like those nice mercury fillings, lead and arsenic, synthetic materials from implants or medical devices. Standard treatment doesn't eliminate those things. We are not just talking about contamination here. As if it's not gross enough, people flush their pharmaceuticals, their aborted babies, and everybody's shit goes down it. Now we're adding liquefied human remains. Let's call it what it is. Ritualistic, state-approved cannibalism. Most of you don't even know you're consuming trace amounts of the dead. This is not just disrespectful. It's a spiritual, ethical, and biological violation, all in the name of sustainability. And newsflash, it's legal in 28 states.
House Bill 1894 merely would require any food that contains a vaccine or vaccine material would have to be classified as a drug and labeled as such.
So does the sponsor know of any instances of there being food offered in the state of Tennessee that contains vaccines in some kind of a retail or public forum?
No, I do not know any specific examples, but certainly they are developing this process, and actually Congress has actually dealt with this as well and passed an amendment that said no funds could be used for transgenic edible vaccines. This is a process that is being developed, but this bill merely would say that if that happens in the future, that food would have to be classified as a drug if it had a vaccine in it.
They can raise this. Lettuce is what they're talking about first. They can raise this stuff so cheap, and I've been reading about it, talking about just putting it in lettuce and mass medicate everybody like they do with fluoride in the water. I mean, who controls the dose? If you eat a lot of lettuce, you're going to get a lot of mRNA. If you don't eat any, you won't get any. And they're actually talking about other vegetables that they're trying to put this in. Why don't we just outlaw this stuff completely? We don't have any idea what it's going to do to our children, or, I mean, to us, or old people, anything. I mean, this stuff like out of a science fiction movie.
Bill Gates' appeal coating has been approved to be used on organic foods. The problem is it contains mono and diglycerides, and the manufacturing process for appeal may involve solvents like ethyl acetate, heptane, and trace heavy metals. Mono and diglycerides are explicitly banned to be used on organic foods by the USDA. However, regulators approved appeal as a fungicide, not a coating, a technical loophole that gets around organic certification rules. So while you think you're buying clean, untouched food, you're actually getting produce treated with compounds that critics warn may leave behind residues like arsenic, lead, and palladium. Mono and diglycerides are only permitted in organic production for drum drying, not as coatings. Organopeel's use as a coating violates USDA regulations. Appeal makes on average $84 million a year.
Have any science to back up your opinion?
The best data are autopsies. So in the largest autopsy series published to date, I know because I'm the senior author, of all the deaths we examined, and we re-reviewed them. We had an adjudication committee. We had ways of arbitration deciding on did the vaccine cause death. The answer is, of these cases that came in for autopsy after vaccination, 73.9% of individuals, it was determined that the vaccine was the cause of death. First author is Holscher and colleagues. He's sitting right behind me.
The new lab-grown chicken that was just approved for sale in the U.S. could be headed to your dinner plate. Devin Dwyer has the details. Good morning, Devin.
Hey, good morning, George. Americans ate 75 billion pounds of red meat and chicken last year. But what if some of that meat was not raised on farms, but instead of high-tech facilities? Scientists say that could be good for the environment and your health, and soon it could be on menus and store shelves.
This morning, the USDA has approved cell-cultivated meat to be sold to the public for the first time.
So that's where it all starts, just a few cells.
2 cultivated meat producers now getting the green light to begin commercially selling their chicken, not raised on a farm, but in a facility. The meat is grown using real animal cells and large bioreactors fed with nutrients. I recently got a tour of California-based Upside Foods, the nation's first and largest cultivated meat producer.
You're making chicken in there.
Yeah, so if you look at this is approximately a 200-plus liter tank. And we take cells from a chicken or an egg. It takes 2 weeks to grow the equivalent of 1 chicken, 1,000 chickens, or 100,000 chickens.
So you're saying in this factory you can make more meat faster and cleaner than an average farmer?
Well, ultimately, yes.
The company says cell-cultivated meat could help feed the world's booming population using a fraction of the land and water of animal farming and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Many experts say more study is needed.
A juicy, sizzling steak. Made by computer. While obtaining regular meat is a process that's been taking place for millennia, cow, butcher, beef. Redefined Meat, a meat alternative startup out of Israel, makes their product using a highly technical process. The mix of soy and pea protein, chickpeas, beetroot, nutritional yeast, and coconut fat is formed into steak-like shapes using a 3D printer.
Our goal is to become the largest meat company in the world just by harnessing technology instead of animals.
Meat substitutes are not new, but unlike the soy-based crumbles that mimic ground beef, Redefined Meat's product is designed to act, taste, and cut like flank steak.
This is the holy grail of alternative meat.
It looks, smells, and tastes like the butter we're all familiar with, but without the farmland, fertilizers, or emissions tied to that typical process. And this butter breakthrough, it's happening right here in Batavia.
The company is called Savor, and you better believe it. Their pioneering tech uses carbon and hydrogen to make the stick of butter you see on this plate.
This is pretty novel to be able to make food that looks and tastes and feels exactly like dairy butter, but with no agriculture whatsoever.
And no long ingredient list the average person can't pronounce.
It's really just our fat, some water, a little bit of lecithin as an emulsifier, and some natural flavor and color.
So when could you get a taste yourself? Right now, they're working directly with restaurants, bakeries, and food suppliers, releasing these chocolates made with their butter in time for the holidays.
Savor butter in either its current manifestation or with our partners, we expect that to be on the shelves kind of more like around 2027.
Their team's here in Batavia, Illinois, and their home lab base in San Jose, California, backed by Bill Gates, who wrote in his blog, quote, "The idea of switching to lab-made fats and oils may seem strange at first, but their potential to significantly reduce our carbon footprint is immense."
So remember how I said earlier in this speech that the farmers need to give up their farms before 2030, specifically that year? Yeah, so that's not a coincidence. That year doesn't come out of nowhere. So that year is basically the deadline that our global elites have given our country and will probably give you to abide by these new regulations. And that agenda is called the 2030 Agenda. And now I have a slide showing you what that entails. So the 2030 Agenda is a United Nations agenda. So there we go. Everybody is part of the United Nations, right? The entire world. And this agenda consists of 17 what they call Sustainable Development Goals. And when you take a look at them right there, you're like, well, what's wrong with that? You know, they all seem very noble. No poverty, no hunger. Who could be against that? However, if we take a closer look at how they actually want to accomplish all of this, anybody with 2 functioning brain cells realizes that this cannot happen unless there is an active and maybe even forceful redistribution of goods, foods, property, and our rights, which basically comes down to the obliteration of all of our basic liberties and our rights. And these goals, as I said, are not restricted solely to the Netherlands. They are global. And that's where we see their true motive. The people behind this want to establish a one world government, a new world order in which they decide what we eat, when we eat, where we travel, when we travel, who we meet, and what we are allowed to spend our money on. Basically, control over every single aspect of our lives. And I'm sure that many of you have heard the famous sentence from Klaus Schwab, you know, where he says, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." Right? Yeah. That's this agenda. So why are the people behind this agenda specifically targeting farmers? Well, it's because obviously they really want our way of life and the things that we eat to radically change. They don't want us to eat foods that make us strong. They want us to eat synthetic meat created by Bill Gates. They want us to eat bugs. They want us to drink soy milk so that we become weak and obedient, and we do as they say, and we buy what they offer.
And globally. And did we solve that? Like, did we actually manage to vaccinate everyone in the world? No. So highlighting water as a global commons and what it means to work together and see it both out of that kind of global commons perspective, but also the self-interest perspective, because it does have that parallel. It's not only important, but it's also important because we haven't managed to solve those problems which had similar attributes. And water is something that people understand. You know, climate change is a bit abstract. Some people understand it really well. Some understand it a bit. Some just don't understand it. Water, every kid knows how important it is to have water. When you're playing football and you're thirsty, you need water. So there's also something about really getting citizen engagement around this and really, in some ways, experimenting with this notion of the common good. Can we actually deliver this time in ways that we have failed miserably other times? And hopefully we won't keep failing on the other things, but anyway.
It's a sad situation, a way they getting rich off us.
The Alabama Department of Corrections farms out incarcerated people to work at hundreds of private companies and government agencies across the state.
McDonald's, Burger King, Golden Corral, Wendy's. They got a Wendy's contract right now. State Trooper's office.
They'll send everybody everywhere.
They'll send you everywhere. Yes, the parole office.
And even though ADOC trusts these incarcerated people to leave prison every day and work alongside the general public, many of them are still denied the chance at real freedom.
I work for y'all, but when I come up for parole, you deny me. Why would you deny me? Because I got free. Because you're getting free service. They want me to come back in tomorrow. They want me to, because they money keep flowing.